Fantastic point just came up. This headline, I want to leave this one alone. I got a few more I want to talk about too, and plus the ones I just handed you I want to talk about. But there are all kinds of concessions that you have to check before you believe this claim. Because if you believe the claims that come in the newspaper, you're going to get whiplash. Coffee's good, coffee's bad, coffee's good, coffee's bad, coffee's good. I got that one coming up in a little bit. I just got found some new headlines for that one. You get whiplash trying to follow the trends of what's good and what's bad. And when I say good and bad, you have to look at what's being measured. And was it measured properly? That's what I would hope that would never make it to the cutting room floor. DA measured, she claimed that what if people with lower IQs are the ones that are using the fluoride already? Well, then it's a pre-existing condition of low IQ, and you're only going to see that maintained through the study. I would hope that they would select the study, check the IQ of the entire study, and go, okay, this group has an average IQ of 100. Then randomly assign them one or the other to establish the randomization of the average of IQ. I would hope. That's why you gotta go back and read. That's why you have to go in and look at it. There's always a methodology section in any study paper. You've probably seen it before, as you guys have heard before. Read the methodology. A lot of it's jibber jabber, a lot of it's statistical methods, and there are hundreds of them out there, some of which you're not going to learn in this class, most of which you're not going to learn in this class. We're going to limit it down to z-tests, t-tests, chi-squares, and f-tests. That's it. There are dozens more and variants upon those. The important thing is look at how they spread their data up. And question it if it should be questioned. Thank you, Deanne. I mean, it was an extreme case that you brought up, but a very, very good one to consider. And not to mention the old standby, suppose we can believe. This is going to piss you off, and I apologize. Fluoride does lower children's IQ. Suppose we believe it. What's the next question you ask?
How much?
How? Well, maybe not. Maybe why? But how much? Suppose it's a 1/4 of 1 percentage point difference. That might not even be a real difference.
Or how much fluoride causes.
That I would hope would be controlled for as well in the study. I would hope. I would hope the amounts of fluoride used would also be controlled for. You know what? You want interesting actually? You bring that up. Instead of having just two groups, a control group and a fluoride group, having a control group and a number of experimental groups with different amounts of fluoride, huh?
Isn't there different ways to get fluoride too, though? Like, it can be in your toothpaste, or you can go to the dentist and they put it like in your mouth.
Well, technically, I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, and everybody correct me if I'm wrong, if you use it topically, you don't ingest it.
Well,
You spit it back out. Well, that's the idea. The idea with children's toothpaste is that's why they always tell you to work with your children while they're brushing their teeth so they're not swallowing toothpaste. Yes.
Make them
A
dumb.
lot of the children, because you
I mean, Harvard says so. Harrison, go ahead, brother.
Okay, so let's say like they did their methods perfect, they had a large population
That's
group.
exactly.
Yeah, and like
Hold
how
that.
do you go about basing, other control groups? Because like only places I can think of where there's a high concentration of fluoride in the water is like inner city areas, where chances are if you could afford other water, you'd be buying it.
True.
Like,
True.
And there's like traditional bias.
You guys, I love, please keep this coming alternative. And please realize when I say don't worry about that, no. I'm only talking about the mathematics of the moment. That needs to be controlled for. You have to make sure whoever's in your study is being controlled in that way. And the problem with so many of these studies is it's not. Because they come in for a measurement, then they go back and do their lives. How many of those people are going out and drinking bottled water versus going and drinking tap water? I come from Delaware. I know what crap water, heavily fluoridated, heavily chlorinated in some ways, water tastes like. And then I come to Bend and it's heaven. Heaven. The water's not fluoridated here, is it? No, right?
We have some of the best water.
It's amazing water. It's New York City people are like, oh, we have the best water in the country. I'm like, no, you actually don't. Sorry. No, we do. Well, you're from New York, so you think you do. Sorry. But the idea is, yes, you have to control for those things. And when I say you have to control, Michael laughed because he knows very often it's not controlled for. It's physically impossible to control unless you keep the person in a room and monitor every aspect of their lives. Now, I had punk rock friends back in the day that used to do this to make money. They'd volunteer for a study, they'd get $40, they'd be sleep deprived for 2 days, and they'd write down a bunch of things on paper and then go home. They were kept in the controlled environment so they couldn't leave and sneak up on some sleep. The idea was sleep deprivation, for example. They were controlled. That's the idea of controlling for unknowns. If you let those people out and into their lives and come back in, you've automatically inserted problems into your study because you have in control for that kind of thing. So Harrison, when I say don't worry about it, if we get too hung up on those, Here's why I say that. If we get too hung up on those, we can never learn the mathematical techniques because we're never going to get past the data point. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dismiss it. I love everything you guys are saying. I'm just, if we get so hung up on those biases, which I do want to hear about as we go through, we'll take like 1 or 2 from each study, of course. The problem is we never get any further than that, and no statistics is ever done. So what you do is you do mildly imperfect statistics on you do perfect statistics on mildly imperfect data, and you try to get it replicated as many times as possible. That's basically the idea, and that's what Harvard is doing here. Don't get so hung up on the data that you throw your hands up, nothing can ever tell you anything. Things can tell you things, as long as you control for as much as possible properly. Fair?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, it's fair. It's not really fair. It's fair enough, I guess. Cool? Thank you, guys. And I don't want to shut it down. It's just that I also want to make sure we know the techniques we need to learn.
One more thing. What made him think of doing this in the first place? You know, as far as what made him think, I wonder if fluoride makes people dumber.
That's a great question.
And I guess my question is, if you're looking for trouble, a lot of times you'll find it.
Well, it might have been
You
Actually,
know,
attorney in
how-
lawyer.
what made him go down
Well, I
this
think
road?
that doctors and
lower standardized testing.
study, I think that was what doctors studies.
Just breakfast in general.
Tim brings up a good point, which I think is going to carry through the entire course. Where do these studies come from? Like, why would you think? Drinking coffee. What happens when you drink coffee? What happens when you drink coffee?
Wake up.
What's that?
Makes your
You
fingernails-
pee a lot. I did 3 times the Masters today. It's a new record. Out of the pool. 3 times. Thomas was like, get through the pool.
It makes your fingernails grow.
Makes your fingernails grow.
Yeah.
Okay, what's...
What?
I don't know.
No, what study is it?
Drink coffee, what happens?
Caffeine releases
Your teeth go yellow.
Okay, so caffeine's a stimulant, so you brush your teeth with fluoride toothpaste. What happens? Stimulant, so therefore, heart rate goes up.
Therefore.
It's a stimulant, right? Your heart rate, that's one potential side effect, your heart rate goes up. Actually caffeine can work as a hyperfocuser, I was told by a few people, which is interesting. Basically, it's a stimulant. Would you believe that it lowers heart rate?
No.
Of course you would. Of course you would. What? I told you.
Well, during exercise, didn't you?
You remember that from 243.
Yeah.
One of the things I just handed you right now is a study done, we'll get to it in a minute or two. Elite male cyclists discovered that at certain levels of exercise, caffeine lowers heart rate, it doesn't raise it. Now, how would anyone ever think to look at that? Harrison, go!
If you're gonna run a race, you drank a bunch of coffee like before you ran it, your heart rate's elevated before you run.
Yes.
And then when you start running, your body produces or gets oxygen to your muscles more efficiently. That's therefore your
Possible.
heart rate does have to increase.
But can we come back to that? Can we come back to that? Is that okay?
No.
Can we come, please? I want to come back to that, because that's a good point, because it holds up partially, but not completely based on this study. I want to come back to that, if that's okay. But my question is
Yeah,
why would a study be funded to study that caffeine lowers heart rate?
Their results on one time, one replication wasn't the norm, it's been confirmed or whatever.
Right.
People were like, oh, this isn't the standard.
Somebody with low heart rate drank coffee and died.
Okay, maybe. But maybe. I'm trying to answer Tim's question about how these studies even come to be. Suppose, for example, you're out with a bunch of dudes on your Sunday ride, a bunch of guys going out, hammer fests, they're going out for 100-mile rides. And one dude's sipping a latte before the ride, and his friends are like, dude, you're an idiot. You should be drinking water, you're going to dry yourself out. As we know, caffeine's a diuretic, so they can have that effect on your cells as well. And the dude's like, nah, dude, I can actually ride much longer when I drink caffeine. It's like, well, it's because you're jacked to the core. He's like, no, it actually doesn't jack me, it calms me down. And all of a sudden this discussion starts. Calms you down? What do you mean calms you down? And then some other dude chimes in, oh yeah, you know what? He's right. He's right. Right about mile 60, when we fall into that 60 RPM to 90 RPM range, because elite male cyclists know that. They know how many RPMs they're pedaling on their bikes. And then all of a sudden 2 people agree. And the third guy's like, you know what? I got this buddy in Santa Cruz says the exact. And all of a sudden, this interesting idea, it's interesting against the status quo kind of idea pops up. And then, if enough interest can be generated in a place like the physiology lab at COCC, it becomes a statistical study. So that's how one could come to be.
But also, somebody in the back said the coffee industry, so maybe the coffee industry's mad that everybody says coffee's so bad, so they're trying to prove It's good, isn't it?
Possibly, quite possible, quite possible. I mean, and that's you really have to question those studies because any industry that's paying for their own study is suspect to any kinds of horrible non-sampling bias. Thank you. Harrison, yeah.
Wasn't coffee like one of the simpler like stimulants you can get? 'Cause I know like you take like a pre-workout.
I don't know what you define by simpler, but
But
I know,
I mean,
imagine.
like coffee, there's not a whole lot of stuff added to it. You know, it's like from a bean. There's like the caffeine, and that's what stimulates you pretty much. That's what they say.
I don't know about nutrition to answer that, unfortunately.
Because like,
Sure.
there's a company that make like a lot of money too off of like pre-workouts, and they just think you should stimulate. Say, you study is something, or coffee is something to study because it's something everyone drinks, pretty much.
Well, the study that was done wasn't coffee per se as caffeine. They put caffeine in a pill. So they isolated the actual caffeine and put it in a pill. Now, I don't know if that's simpler. Actually, it's more complex because you have to remove the caffeine from something and put it into a pill form. But you bring up an interesting point about the whole food versus food replacement diet in athletes. Very often, we're going back to you need to eat real foods versus goos and gels and Powerades. And the studies I keep seeing on that are all anecdotal, unfortunately. There's no statistical backing them yet. So more on that to come. I keep looking for data on those as well. But I wish I had a better answer than that. I just don't know enough about nutrition to answer with any kind of certitude. School breakfast, key to future success.
Isn't any breakfast key to success?
I don't know. Define both of those things while you're at it. Define what a breakfast is. Define success. Let's read. Breakfast might not just be the most important meal of a child's day. It might be one of the most important meals of their life. Okay, so we're talking about children. So we're talking about all people, just children so far.
Is it 18 and under?
I don't know. We have to find a child, don't we? New study. Look, it's hyperlinked. Go find it. Released Wednesday by nonprofit group Share Our Strengths No Kid Hungry campaign. Slight bias there. No Kid Hungry campaign wants kids to eat. So you got to question. I'm not saying question the campaign. I'm saying question the results of the study. Shows the positive effect that school breakfast can have. Performance in class, standardized tests, what this can mean for their future. Okay, so we got a couple pieces of indication right there. Performance in class is measured how?
Test scores.
Yeah, test scores, I would imagine.
Behavior.
Behaviors are one of those inventories we mentioned before. Good. Standardized tests, notoriously used everywhere, notoriously under fire all the time. Rightfully so, in my opinion. And what this can mean for their future. There was an article in the bulletin about 2 years ago saying, remember I talked about data mining earlier, how you can look at certain data points and look at how they are related, how they correlate, which is not a causation but a correlation. Success in Algebra 2 in high school is correlated the best, of any math course, is correlated the best with success in college later. Algebra 2 in high school. If you're successful in Algebra 2, you are more likely to be successful in college than if you stopped at any other course, including, I think, calculus. There's a higher success. Now, why? Why? So the implication of the article was that you better take Algebra 2. Because magically, if you take Algebra 2, you're going to be great in college. And that's causation, not correlation. It's causation, right? Harrison?
It's not so much Algebra 2 that does it, it's the way it prepares you.
Okay, that's one argument. And that was actually the article's argument. It's not so much Algebra 2, it's the way Algebra 2 makes you think for problem solving and critical thinking. I like that.
I would say your base skills were there.
Boom! The correlation, this happens all the time. How many of you guys did Bobcat orientation when you came here to COCC? A few of you? Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all, there was a large chunk of you. I saw somebody do an analysis on Bobcat orientation. What they did was they took everybody that went to Bobcat orientation and looked at their GPA after a year and a half or 2 years here. And then they looked at the people who didn't go to Bobcat orientation and looked at their GPA. And they looked at the GPAs in the Bobcat folks were something like 0.2 of a percentage, or 0.2 of a GPA point higher than. And they said, look, Bobcat orientation's working. I'm like, time out. What you need is 4 groups. You don't need 2, you need 4. You need everybody that's going to sign up for Bobcat orientation and split them in half. Let half of them go to Bobcat orientation and make half of them not go. Say, oh, it's full. I'm sorry, it's full. You have to go and just be students. Sorry. Then the ones that aren't going to go, require some of them to go. Maybe. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. And then require the other quarter not to go. And then compare GPAs across all 4 groups. I would be pleasantly surprised if the GPA of all the people who wanted to go to Bobcat orientation, even if they could or couldn't, wouldn't be exactly the same. Because it's not the Bobcat orientation, right, Michael?
The people that are willing to go.
It's the internal skill set they already take with them. It just so happens they go to Bobcat orientation.
Because they're serious about it.
And that's one more indication in their mind of seriousness. I'm going to go to this, this is going to raise my success rate. But they already have the tools to be successful. Maybe that's where the breaking into 4 groups would actually come in handy to see. Now, if once you've broken into 4 groups, and the 2 groups that went to Bobcat orientation, I'm not saying GPA is the right way to measure this either, FYI, it's just that's the one that's often used. Then you start saying, holy hell, maybe there's something going on, but you can't do it by just looking at Bobcat versus not Bobcat. Careful with that, right? Does that make sense? You guys see what's going on there? Hidden variables. Correlations, not necessarily causation, as Deanne said before. Good. We'll come back to all this stuff again. I got all these in your homework to other places. 1 in 100 kids have autism. Up from 1 in 150.
That's 1 in 88.
Well, didn't they?
Well, this is a couple years old. And I got some more. Look, autism rates rise to 1 in 50 children. Right? Pretty soon 1 in 2. Now, and this one's fairly old. This is from 2009. This one is from 13. What was that? April 2013.
Didn't they change their
Yeah, they
definition?
They changed the definition of autism.
Prevalence of ASDs. I forget what ASD stands for.
Autism spectrum disorder.
Thank you. Autism spectrum per 1,000 children. Look, 6.6, 9.0, 11.3. Crazy rise. And then you look down at the bottom. The increase in autistic cases over the past decade is thought to be due to more thorough screening rather than a true spike in autism. So in other words, due to the definition change that happened, I think about 3 years ago, where Asperger's is 2 years ago, where Asperger's is now looped into the autistic spectrum. Now autism is in here. It wasn't in there, I believe, 5 years ago. Now it is. So some of the spike is not really a spike, it's just a definition change. And the fact that, oh my God, cancer rates are off the chart compared to 1942. Yes, because people are actually, A, living long enough to be diagnosed for cancer, and B, getting it caught via screenings. So I would hope that cancer rates are going up, not because I'm a bastard, but because then the people that have cancer are getting treatment for it. You see what I'm getting at, friends? So I'm not doubting this. I'm doubting the autism rate rises to 150 children and the implications of that. Maybe the rate is rising, but does that mean that autism is spiraling out of control?
Adding more people to it.
Maybe we're just catching more people via the studies. There's more than one explanation for almost all of these headlines. That's the kick. Yeah, Kate.
So is this an example of it's statistically significant, but it's not practically significant?
Every single one of these is statistically significant when you run the tests.
It's also practical.
It could, yes.
It's like our quiz.
I am not saying one way or the other practical significance. I plead ignorance for the most part on practical significance because practical significance needs to be assessed by someone who's an expert in the field. You see what I'm getting at? I plead ignorance on that because I don't want to get in a fist fight with somebody that I'm not prepared to fight with. And I don't mean fight, I mean discuss with. I can tell by your guys' questions who's involved in what field. I love that. And the thing about this class develops the techniques and the questions. But the techniques to do the numerical tests, you guys add that to your already awesome knowledge and what you're going to gain more of, and your toolbox has more tools in it. So that's, yes, this could be or could not be practically significant. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, sister, I'm with you. But statistically, every single one of these is a positive test result. A small p-value positive test result. Thank you, friends. Now, this is one we're going to look at a little bit later in the course. This is actually fairly old, but it's coming back again. H1N1, remember that it was all the rage a few years ago. Swine flu, I think it was, or bird flu, whatever it was. My buddy Jamie just got it. He just got it, like 3 weeks ago, got H1N1. He's a doctor. I'm like, you sure? He's like, oh wait, you're a doctor. I'm fairly sure you're sure. And the problem was, if you remember, the big issue in swine flu was there wasn't enough vaccine. They ran out of vaccine. People were freaking out. Oh my God, H1N1. Folks, more people died that year from normal flu than swine flu. Be more concerned about that, regardless. It turns out a great study was done in London, I believe it was. No, Washington's reported on it. 2 studies published. One of these was from London. I know because I have the data we're going to look at in this class. 2 studies from London. If you watered down the vaccine, it still worked enough to kill enough antibodies from the flu. So essentially, 1 bottle becomes 2 bottles, becomes twice as much of a dosage. How do you do that? We'll study it in class. I have the data. It's super fun, super fun. So the idea is once you define what working means, you can test to see statistically significantly if it was work. And then those in the medical field can decide whether it's practically significant or not. All we're testing is statistics. I hope you realize I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes by falling back on statistical significance. It's the simple fact that You guys are becoming specialists trained in your field, and I never will be. I'm just giving you a tool that you can add to your shit that you can use to.
You are a pro in your field, and that's why you're able to say it's.
Well, in this field, yes, but you guys are pros in your own field. That's the thing. You guys are each pros in your own studies, so, and that's why I can't do practical. I can't do practical because two people might have a different definition of what practical significant
You're
is.
also a statistics teacher, not a practitioner.
Of course.
Teacher, whatever.
Well, I'm not an HDFS master's degree holder. I'm not a forest service. I'm not a natural resources major. But all of this underlies all those studies. So, all right, now, oh, here we go. Coffee, good for us, bad for us. Two new studies disagree. Surprise. 11 reasons why you should drink coffee every day. Drinking more than 4 cups of coffee a day linked with higher death risk for people under age 55. More than 28 cups of coffee a week, which sounds ridiculous until you realize that's more than 4 cups a day. I saw that, I'm like, holy hell, who drinks 28 cups a week? And then I realized that's a quart of coffee a day. I would not be surprised if there are quite a few people that are drinking that much coffee.
Can you get into coffee or caffeine? Because
Read studies, Brian.
I've been
Read
with Red Bulls
them.
and
Read
Red Bulls.
them.
Probably
Read them. See if it's coffee or the caffeine in coffee.
100% of the people.
You say that again?
100% of the people are all.
Already done. We're all done. That's a nice word way of looking at it. Now, I want to tie all this together. And amazingly enough, as I look for the best ways to kind of explain, all those studies represent a statistically significant trend of something. And as I look, and I remember sitting in your guys' seats when I was an undergrad thinking, okay, how do I understand what p-values are, these hypothesis tests? They seem very ethereal, very airy. And as I was listening to music one day, I suddenly realized that my friends at NoFX actually have the most perfectly beautiful way of explaining hypothesis tests. I don't know if you guys are NoFX fans or not. A wonderful, wonderful band from Southern California, LA, I believe. Take a listen. Listen to the pros. Believe it or not, those 4 lines completely wrap up, succinctly and perfectly, what the back half of this course is about. Completely and succinct. I can't wait. I think I'm going to meet Mike soon. And I get to actually tell him that. He's going to be like, thanks, freak. Walk away and say, I wrote it about the streets of LA, or something like that. But here's the idea. Tim asked a great question earlier about, how do these studies even come about? Like, how do you know to test fluoride against IQ? Let's fast forward over that, because that's a great question. And it's not an easy one to answer. Some of these studies are years and years and years in the making until we see enough replication of an idea that then becomes a study. But now let's say we're actually ready to start the study. So we are ready. We are ready to see if fluoride affects IQ. We are ready to see if caffeine or coffee, whatever it is, affects death rate. We are ready to see if breakfast somehow affects success rates in school. And life, exactly, in life, right? So we set the study up. And we've got our control groups broken down, and we are happy, we are ready to go. And we go into that study, and we start whatever process it is, whether it's editing diet, whether it's editing coffee intake, whether it's editing fluoride amounts. What are we looking for? What are we looking for between the control group and the experimental group? We are looking for a difference. Define difference. Define difference.
Change.
A change from what? Thank you, Harrison. A change from what?
From the norm.
What would the norm be? I love this.
What's the average?
Yeah, I heard control. Good. What would the average be? Suppose, for example, define normal as far as fluoride and IQ. You're shaking your head, right? You're shaking your head. Tim's question was, how did anybody start believing that fluoride actually affected IQ? Why would you? What would the antique belief be about fluoride and IQ? Would they affect each other? Why would you ever think they affect each other? Correct? Why would you have any clue that fluoride and IQ would affect each other?
Because fluoride makes your teeth fall out and not having teeth makes you not smart.
It's fluoride.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that response.
The whole
I was expecting
missing-
fluoride tied to IQ thing. The idea is, at first, I don't think when people started fluoridating water, all of a sudden people were like, holy crap, I'm worried about lowering my IQ. They probably said, oh, okay, we're fluoridating water. So there's no reason to believe that fluoride is affecting IQ off the bat. That's called the status quo. There's no reason to think that breakfast and success rates are tied together originally. There's no reason to think that fluoride and IQ rates originally. There's no reason to think that coffee's going to kill you at a higher death rate, at a higher rate than not coffee. So the original, when you guys said the change, you're looking for a change. The change is change from status quo, which we have to formally mathematically define, which is what this whole class is about from this point on out. Good? Fair enough? The next line you can skip. I think you just put that in to make it rhyme. So you can ignore that next line. When you see the end doesn't justify the means, which means you've gone into the study with fluoride and IQ, and you say, you know what, I don't think fluoride affects IQ at all. Holy crap! The data I just got back says it does. I don't think breakfast implies any difference in school performance. Holy crap! It's the holy crap moment. When you're like, oh my god, the data actually contradicts that belief. The end, the data, doesn't justify the mean belief from before that there was no difference. So, oh my god, people that are drinking coffee at 25 cups a week are dropping dead 5% more per year than people that aren't drinking coffee. The original belief was that coffee has no effect at all on death rate, but the data is saying that it does. The original belief is that fluoride has no connection to IQ, but the data says it does. The original belief is that people that multitask can do just as good a job as anybody else, but the data says they can't. So what do you then have to do based on that conclusion?
Do your own study.
You switch, well, replicate perhaps, but that particular study flips its belief 180 degrees from there is no connection to there is a connection. Do you see that? Mwah. Thank you guys. Fantastic, fantastic wrap-up of hypothesis testing all at once. Isn't that amazing? It's incredible. All of that succinctly wrapped up in 3 of 4 lines of a pretty cool song, actually. Harrison, your hand was up earlier. I want to make sure I got that answer.
Yeah, it's like I think I get exactly what you're saying.
Good.
I got a geology course,
Good, go.
and we're studying, well, basically, her lecture's been on how copper mines sulfuric acid in the pits.
Okay.
It's like a way to like measure pollution because you got
Okay.
exposed to sulfuric acid. And the acidity is a problem, but it's not the sulfuric acid that is the main problem. It's everything that's piggybacked on the
Ah,
sulfuric
the chemistry behind,
yeah,
behind that.
Well, after like the same thing with the fluoride and stuff, it might not necessarily be the fluoride, it might be everything that's found
Oh!
with the presence
Yes.
of fluoride.
Yes, yes, yes.
Same thing with caffeine.
Correlation, not causation.
Coffee.
Yes.
It's not necessarily just the coffee.
all the
It's the
sugar,
personality, the
the
lifestyle, everyone who drinks that much coffee.
That's a
But coffee's
huge
the
one.
way to
Yes.
kind of,
Oh, the vehicle, if you will.
yeah.
No, Harrison, I love what you're saying. 100%, I agree with you 100%. I mean, if you think about caloric intake, a Starbucks, I finally had one just because I needed to try it. I tried one of those, caramel,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I was up in Canada, we were playing a festival, we had 5 shows in 24 hours, and I was like, I need a kick in the pants, so I was like at Starbucks, I'm like, let me try one of those things, never had one before. I couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
Now, I have a metabolism of 5 cheetahs, and I couldn't consume that entire thing. I was vomited by halfway through it. There's so much sugar and crap in there. There's coffee in there, I think, somewhere. I think there's coffee in there. But it was so much caloric intake. I think it's 600 calories or something. That's a third of your caloric intake for a 2,000 calorie day in one thing I couldn't finish. So yes, have you, and the answer hopefully is yes, controlled for that. You're not letting the control group drink Starbucks and the experimental group drink a caffeine pill. I hope. Sarah, yeah?
This is kind of unrelated, but I have a friend who drinks a lot of coffee.
Yes?
And she went to McDonald's and she wanted to get 2 cups to stay in for later.
Yes?
And she spilled one on her lap and crashed and got a really bad accident.
Oh,
so
no.
I mean, that was like, the reason was from the coffee that she crashed because she was addicted to the coffee. She wanted more coffee for
Oh, interesting. So this is one of those vehicles for
yeah, so I was
cause.
saying,
Coffee.
coffee.
It's a shame it wasn't 2 decades earlier. She could make a lot of money off of that. Which actually, never mind. I don't want to. So that lady actually got really, really hurt. when that
Yeah, she
happened.
was.
I know. Yes. So the vehicle for the cause. I want to leave you with one thing to think about, and this is a tie back to NoFX. It's a tie back. I want to instill with you. We'll hold the articles for next time. What you just observed with the NoFX song is something called a proof by contradiction.